welcome to So Many Whatnots. I'm Willow, and this is my series on the farmer's wife, and this is number 16, Bonnie. Now I've picked out all my fabrics. Let me grab the book real quick to show you a picture of what Bonnie looks like. Let's see if I can find the larger photo. Here it is. All right, without giving you too much, this is Bonnie, number 16. And that is what we're going to be making today. And on the assembly page, it looks like this. And in the book, it is page 175. So I'm going to put that back on my stand. I have this nifty little stand here that I keep my book on. All right. And let's move that back. All right. Okay, so I picked out my fabrics. I wanted to keep them similar to the colorway in the photo. So I have a red, a patterned blue, and a patterned pink. And these all have a little bit of red in them, so I thought it would look good with those. So those are the colors we're using. I have my templates. We'll get these out and we will start tracing and cutting. All right, the book will tell you how many to cut from each template. Make sure I have them all. A, B, C. I am missing D. All right, I have to go find that. I will be back in a moment. Okay, guys. Wow, that is amazing that my very first video, I'm missing a piece. Now, I do know it is a 1.5 by 1.5. And so we'll make a 2 by 2 and we will just cut that out. So for this one, you technically don't need templates, but I'm using them because I like them. All right, so let's get moving on to cutting out the pieces we need. All right. I messed up and can't seem to find my one template, I'm just going to use my rotary cutter and a ruler to cut out the 2-inch squares that I need. So I'm going to cut off this edge. I am not a fan of the edges, and I don't like to use them if possible. All right, so we'll just do this real quick. Now you notice this block could have been done completely with a rotary cutter. However, I don't want to do that. I would prefer my whole quilt be made in the traditions of the past. And I honestly can't remember when the rotary cutter was invented, but I don't know. There's just something about scissors. There's just a satisfaction that comes with scissors. So I'm going to use scissors. See if I get this pretty accurate. These will be the 2 most accurate pieces in the entire quilt, most likely. All right, and these are 1.5-inch pieces, so I am making 2-inch squares, and that allows for the 1/4-inch seam allowance. All right, so I'm going to put this away now. Oh, that's my scrap there. Let's not get those mixed up. All right, let's put these on the board how they are in the book. And we will start piecing. Now, we will have to draw our seam allowances. So what we're going to do, we're going to start with these 2 pieces and put those together here. And then we will put these 2 together here and these 2 together right here. Why does that not make sense? One moment, let's see here. Nope. Okay, this is better. The book's a little, yeah, that stays. Okay, so let's put these together first. So we're going to make sure we're drawing on the right part. So let's take this here, and we want this one here. Let's see how I orient my, okay. I guess it doesn't matter which way, but it matters enough. And you absolutely do not have to mark both sides. Sometimes I do that and sometimes I don't, just because maybe I'll want to do sew from the side and maybe I'll want to sew from this side. Typically I sew from the shorter side, but it's easier just to mark both sides than to think sometimes, to be honest. Okay, let's sew these together. Now, I want to make a quick note. When I did my sample blocks, I noticed that you really need to sew a scant fourth inch, a scant quarter. So normally, and if you watch my a video on how to hand sew, how hand piece, I usually sew directly on the line. But for this quilt, I am sewing right next to the line. And that just, my blocks come out the proper size when I sew right next to it. When I sew on it, they tend to come out a little small. And where this has less pieces, I may have to trim it down. It'll probably come out a little bigger. But it'll be really important to do that scant quarter when we get into pieces that have a lot of pieces. let's press these open. Okay, so now our board looks like this. And we are going to sew these pieces together. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to mark this piece on this side and this side. And then I'll be able to sew that way and this way. Try to keep that in view a little bit. Oops, I left that open. Okay, now to make sure we're sewing them the proper way, I just fold it down over and then pin it like that. And get your seams matched up. So we have nice sharp points. right, let's press this one open. Okay, so now we have this. So now we're going to sew these two together. And we'll flip that down, and then we're going to pin on the other side because that's where our line is. next one, getting all the fuzzies. All right, our next one is to take this block down on top of this one. Okay, so we're just gonna grab those, make a quick mark here. And I always mark all of my seam allowances. It doesn't matter what I'm doing. I just always mark them. I'm not one that can measure using my fingers. And for one this small, you might not even pin it. I pin everything excessively. I even pin my little 1-inch 9 patches. They end up being 3 by 3 inches. I pin those. All right, let's sew this together. And our last step is to sew this one to that one. So I'm going to flip these and I'm going to mark this one and we'll pin it together. Sorry, I keep bumping into the camera. Well, I did that. Oh, goodness. So to press this, I'm just going to snip this right there, like that. And that'll press open just fine. And that happens, and it's no big deal. All right, guys, there is the very first block. And if we measure this, let's see, 6.5. Now, once it's pressed, I'll take it down to the iron and press it. But right now it is 6.5 by 6.5. So make sure to use that scant 1/4 inch. And if yours did not turn out 6.5 inches, that's okay. You can always redo it. Just adjust your seam allowance a little bit and you should have it. So there it is. Number 16, Bonnie, our first block. All right, if you guys have any questions, leave them down below and I will answer them in a special Q&A that we will do for the farmer's wife. Thank you guys. Bye.